Welcome to the Our Debt Free Journey podcast. We're your hosts, Joel and Chrissy.
Hello.
And we're from the YouTube channel, The Long Run, Joel and Chrissy. If you haven't been over there, we want to encourage you to go over there and check out our YouTube channel. We do everything from frugality, frugal grocery tips. We do grocery hauls, a lot of different things that you can check out over there. But today on the podcast, we want to talk about the three misconceptions that people make on a debt-free journey or on a frugal journey. Now, just to be totally transparent with you, this was originally a blog post where Chrissy had contributors from Instagram participating with the post as well. So we're going to have some comments from some Instagram followers as well as we talk about these things.
Right.
Now, another note is that since people are less likely to talk about money with other people, some of these may be more like assumptions that our contributors experienced. In other words, it could be judgments that they felt or passive-aggressive comments that they heard, but haven't actually necessarily had anyone say these things to them verbatim.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So be sure to stick around to the end because we're going to share some of the misconceptions that come from fellow members of the debt-free or frugal community. The truth is that we're all hopelessly flawed, and hopefully we can better understand each other after the podcast video.
Yeah.
All right, so let's kind of dive into it and see what we want to do here. And the first misconception here is that they are broke or cheap.
Yeah.
Most people assume that if you're on a debt-free journey or a frugal journey, then you're broke or you're cheap, and that's just totally not true.
And in our case,
in many cases,
in our case, when we started our debt-free journey, it was because we were broke.
Yeah.
It was because of a job loss. If you lose the job income of the main provider, that will spur you on to a debt-free journey pretty fast because you realize all of a sudden that you're in a situation where you're not making enough money to cover your bills. So you're going to have to start making some adjustments to how you spend and what you do really fast. But that is not everyone's case. There are just some people who wake up one day and realize that they want to retire early. They don't want to live their life having to work well into their 60s and 70s. So they start making cuts and making decisions that will get them out of debt and help them financially prepare for the future. And so they're not struggling financially. They just want a better future where they get to make different decisions than if they continue on the path that they're going currently.
That's correct. So, kind of like our situation, people wonder why we haven't purchased another house or why we do no spend challenges, for example. And a lot of the no spend challenges we do so that we can show you that it can be done and just to challenge ourselves to be more frugal than the day before. So
it makes us stop and think about whether or not we really need that thing that we thought we needed.
That's right. And most importantly, we make a conscious effort to never use credit to buy things that we can afford to pay back immediately. So even if it means delayed gratification, I know that's a bad word in today's society. Delayed gratification. We want things now. We want things done now, and delayed gratification kind of brings on a negative connotation in a lot of people's minds. But once you save up for it and you pay for it, and you don't have to worry about credit. Then it feels a lot better once you have it.
The thing that people may not realize about delayed gratification is it's not saying no. It's just saying wait until you've saved up enough money for it, or think about it for 24 or 48 hours and see if that urge, that feeling that you have that you need to buy something is still there. It's not necessarily saying you can't have it ever.
That's right.
Just can we wait 24 hours and think about it a little bit?
That's right. Now, does that mean that we're broke or that we're cheap? Well, no. If you follow our other channel, Long Run, Joel and Chrissy, that we
Adventures on the Long Run.
Adventures on the Long Run. Well, there's some content like that on.
We have more than one channel.
then you know that we do budget fund money every month.
Yeah, actually, we have that on both channels. Yeah, but Adventures on the Long Run is a travel channel, so
That's right.
obviously we have travel involved in that, or that would be not a great channel to, you know, have a travel channel and never go anywhere.
Yep. And we couldn't do that if we were broke. So
Right.
no to that. So all right. So what are some examples of being cheap?
There's a couple to me. One is that if you go out to a restaurant, if you don't tip, because, you know, I can't afford to tip, but I'm still going to spend the money on the meal.
Yeah.
If it's a restaurant where typically you tip, and I know outside of the United States, tipping is not as normal as it is in America, but that is, if you're in a sit-down restaurant in America, you should tip your waiter or waitress, you know, because they provided you a service, and is our culture here. So, but it is like, and I do think tipping culture has gotten a little out of hand in America, because we're also being asked to tip on things that used to not be tipped on. But in a normal sit down restaurant situation, yes, you should tip. And another example of cheap is we one time witnessed somebody like berate a cashier because a pack of cookies rang up for 30 cents more than what he thought it was supposed to. And I'm not saying that you should just let it go. If you aren't happy with it and the cashier says, I'm sorry, then you can go to customer service and have a calm conversation with them. But berating a cashier because it costs 30 cents more is a little more on the cheap side. So to me, frugal is making wise purchasing decisions, things like that. Cheap is being rude or lacking thoughtfulness of other people, like only thinking of yourself, that kind of thing.
That's right. Yeah. So here's some responses from some of our followers from Instagram talking about being cheap, broke or cheap. One of the comments is that you can't do fun things ever or eat out or treat yourself. I understand some people's debt-free journey does look like that, and that's fine, but for many it doesn't. For me, the biggest challenge has not so much been pulling back on my expenses, although that helped, but rather being super intentional about where my money is going and allocating each dollar so I don't have floating money that gets spent on unnecessary things. And then another comment was, we're private about our journey, but our families have made comments about us saying no to most things, assuming we were broke and not just intense toward other goals. So the assumption is you're broke, but you're focused on other things rather than the things that people think you should be focused on. Being the basis of a debt-free journey is becoming intentional about how you want to spend your money. It doesn't have to be that you say no to everything, but you say no to some things because you find out what's important to you. The second misconception is kind of on the opposite end, is that they're rich. Not much experience with this because we were in ministry for a while, and well, most of us, we can't get rich in ministry. So
yeah, unless you're imagining a mega church pastor, that was not what we were doing. We were in small country churches most of the time, and they generally barely paid more than like a bivocational pastor salary, which basically means one where if you made any less than that, you'd probably have to have a part-time job just to make ends meet. That was pretty much where we were financially. And a lot of them, maybe the wife had a job, but there were times where, and I did do that at times, but there was also times when our kids were so small that by the time I paid daycare, it wouldn't have been worth it anyway. It was never a rich thing for us.
Yeah. So we're going to go to some comments on this one because that's not really been our story.
Right.
And then here's a comment that says, people assume you earn a lot of money when you pay off debt, but it's really how how you manage your money.
Right.
That's what really counts. So
Right.
living below your means has to do more with one's ability to pay off your debts rather than how much money you actually make. So just assuming that someone is debt free, they earn a lot of money and that they're rich is totally a misconception.
Yeah. We're kind of indoctrinated, aren't we? Like with the debt is normal kind of mentality, to the point that we think that unless you are wealthy, you can't be debt free. That's not possible.
Yeah. And then another comment is people assume because we have a large house and we have a large mortgage. Nope. We have traded up to our 8th and final home. So sometimes you can do that. And
if you started out small in the beginning
Yeah.
and kept trading up, you could have a large home by the time you get to, I don't know if it would take 8 on everybody, but starting small with a starter house is one way to get up to a bigger house as you go.
Yep. And then the last thing is, I think it's the last thing.
Yeah, okay. The third actually is going to have some multiple points within it, but we'll go through them pretty.
Yeah, and these are really among the debt-free or frugal communities, the misconceptions among the debt-free or frugal community.
In other words, what people in the debt-free or frugal community think about other people in the debt-free or frugal community.
Yeah, and we found that overall, the debt-free community and frugal community can be one of the most loving and encouraging support groups you can find online, mainly because we all come from difficult backgrounds and struggling to pay off debt. Once you do that, then you realize, hey, then I can help somebody else too. So we've made some great connections with people in this community from all over the world, and still have those connections today. And so we're
on both YouTube and Instagram.
That's right. So we're extremely proud about that. But we all come to the table with our own experiences, with our own perspectives, and while that perspective makes sense for the individual, like our perspective makes sense for us, it may not be appropriate for everyone. For instance, we use YNAB for our budgeting software, and not everybody does, and that's fine.
That is an app that stands for You Need a Budget.
Yeah. And we've been using it now for close to 11, almost 12 years now. So
love it.
And we actually started using it back when it was a free version. And now you pay a little bit for it, but it's still pretty robust in what it does. And as frugal people would, and as they expect you to in YNAB, you save up for whatever the fee is at the end of the year. So and then you got it ready to pay for. So
there you go.
So we use YNAB, but you're not wrong if you don't. There are a lot of other software programs out there that you can use for budgeting,
or you can use Excel.
That's right.
Or a piece of paper.
That's right. So however you want to do that.
Whatever.
So that's our method for our budgeting software. Yeah, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you for budgeting software.
Words.
Appreciate it. So some different things different misconceptions. Number one is that we all started off our debt-free journey because of a financial crisis. That's not always the case.
No.
We did have a bit of a financial crisis, but it also helped us to realize what was important to us and what we really wanted to spend our money on.
Right.
And it wasn't a lot of things that we were doing at the time. So
yeah, but like we noted earlier, there's some people who didn't start it because of financial crisis, but because they just knew that they wanted to be able to retire early or something like that.
That's right. Another thing is comparisons. People who use the debt-free or frugal hashtags must be in debt currently, and that means that causes comparisons between people. Now, our journey is not going to be the same as your journey, and your stage right now is not going to be the same as our stage.
There's like, if you follow Dave Ramsey, he's got how many baby steps? 6, 7? I don't know. But like, yes, there can be people in the debt-free frugal community that is on step 1, which is building your emergency fund. There could be some who have paid off all of their debt, mortgage and everything, but they still identify with the debt-free frugal community because they had gone through all those steps. They worked hard. They'd be great mentors to the new ones that are just starting out, but they're not in the same place as you. So if you are just starting out on that beginning where you're just trying to figure out a way to save up a little money for your emergency fund, don't compare yourself to somebody who's completely and totally debt free because they've been in it for so long.
That's right. Is that another misconception is that everyone in the community currently has or has had an overspending problem. Not always the case. You could be in debt and not have an overspending problem. You just don't make enough money to cover what you need for your necessities. So
right.
That's
and like for us, we were not overspenders.
Yeah.
We had a budget before Joel lost his job, but we also was still in that mentality that everyone has debt. So we had car notes, we had a mortgage, we had car notes. I think we had a couple of $1,000s on a credit card, but not a lot. We didn't have tons of credit card debt. We didn't have any student loans. It just and part of that was because like if I went shopping, I would talk myself out of buying anything. I have always been kind of like analysis paralysis kind of person, and sometimes I'll walk out without buying anything at all. He gets frustrated with me if we go to a convenience store and get a candy bar because I can't just pick up one and go with it.
It takes her 10 or 15 minutes. I have to wait to buy my icy Coke so it didn't melt. So
right.
Until she picks up what she's going to get.
Yeah, well, we don't go often, so I don't want to mess up my choice. And that's one of the things is I really struggle with. I don't want to regret my purchase, and so I will overthink everything. So that's why a lot of times there wasn't an overspending problem there because I was standing there thinking, I don't know if I want to buy it. What if I regret purchasing this? And so I'd walk out with nothing. And I got that from my grandma. I know, because I would see her do that when I was a kid. I would see her go into the grocery store and then walk out with like only 2/3 of her grocery list because she would sit there and she would stand there and talk herself out of what she had on the list. And so I got that. So it's not always an overspending problem. It could just be that you're like most people and you may have convinced yourself that debt is normal. And so you have car notes and stuff like that. And then you find yourself in a financial situation where you say, if I didn't have those car notes and I didn't have that couple of $1,000s worth of debt, I wouldn't have had the struggle. So like we immediately, when he lost his job, was struggling to figure out how were we going to pay our car notes. Not just our mortgage, but how are we going to pay these 2 car notes that we have? And so that's the problem with debt is that if you have something like that happen, you may find yourself trying to figure out how am I even going to pay these things? I don't want them to come and repossess my cars and stuff like that. So it's not always an overspending problem. It could be just a situation where you just thought like debt was normal.
Yeah.
So.
The next misconception is if anyone has anything nice, they must be in debt. All of us make those assumptions. Wow, look at that nice truck going there. They must be really in debt to pay that off. And that's not always the case. Another misconception is that we should all be on the same level of gazelle intensity. And that's not always the case. We call ourselves frugal-ish.
Yeah.
Because we do a lot of things that a lot of people in the debt-free community don't do. We go out to eat, and we go to theme parks, and we do all these kinds of things, but still consider ourselves frugal because we have decided this is things we're going to spend our money on, and we don't spend them on superfluous things.
Just as a note, if you're not familiar with that term, gazelle intensity, I'm not sure if that's a Dave Ramsey term, but it just means to be laser focused on your debt, like everything all in, completely focused. And so like he was saying, we don't necessarily like focus to the point of like never having any fun and never going out to eat. Now, if you're like the situation we were in when Joel lost his job, yes, we had to be gazelle intense in those moments, but that doesn't mean that you have to stay gazelle intense for the rest of your life. So, and it's okay if you say to yourself, now that I've gotten myself out of that bind, I'm going to put some fun money aside. It's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Comment from one of our contributors is, I think one of the biggest ones I make about others, and I'm sure they make about me at times, is you're in so much debt, you shouldn't be buying X, Y, and Z. When in reality, how and what we spend during our journey to debt freedom is all individual. So it's all about your tastes and what you like and what you want to spend your money on, what you want to be focused on. A lot of things go into play into that, and we talk about grocery hauls. We do a lot of grocery hauls here on the channel, on the other channel, on the Long Run channel. And
you're seeing this on the Long Run channel. Don't be confused.
And these are meant to encourage other people to look for ways to save money. Sometimes people look at these hauls and question why we purchase certain items, like why you buy so much candy, and why do you buy this, why do you buy those chips, and it doesn't matter.
Or tell you something like, oh, don't you know you could make that at home?
Yeah.
It would be cheaper. And if you follow us, you know that we make a lot of things from scratch. We even call it a make it yourself made. We do a whole series of videos of things that we are learning how to make from scratch instead of buying the prepackaged thing. But there's always some things that you have to decide. One, is the value there in making it yourself as opposed to buying the canned or jarred version? Second, do you have the equipment to make it at home?
And we want people to know that they can buy certain things if they want to, and still meet their grocery budgets every month, even buying some things that other people wouldn't necessarily buy.
Yeah.
And there are some factors that go into grocery hauls and things like that, such as grocery store access. Not everyone has access to an Aldi. Not everyone has access to, well, I guess most everybody has access to Walmart, but
in the United States.
In the United States, but Publix and Winn-Dixie and all those things, that may be the only store you have to go to, and that factors in when you're thinking about your grocery budget. So some stores you're going to pay a little bit more than you would at others.
Right.
Another factor is family size and age of family members. Now, we only have 3 adults in our household right now, so sometimes it's easier for us to buy for us because we don't do a lot. We do some snacks. We don't do a lot of snacks. So if you have kids, you have to think about lunches during the summer and breakfast every day and those things. And for me, I don't have to worry about lunch provisions because I work in a restaurant and I get to eat there when I'm at the restaurant. So
we say lunch provisions, but really it's at least one meal a day.
Yeah, at least one meal a day.
If he's there early, it's breakfast. If he's there late, it's dinner. If he's
there
in the middle of the day, it's lunch.
And sometimes it's maybe both, 2 of those 3. So and then so we don't have to worry about. I don't have to worry about packing a lunch every day. So that's.
And I work from home, so I just make my stuff here.
Yeah, and then your activity level. Now I run a lot. I think most of you know that. You can go check out our other channel, Fit for the Long Run, and see some of my videos there, my Nerdy Runner series. But I run probably 25, 30 miles a week, most weeks. And so we buy some things for me that I can use in that, like peanut butter crackers. I use those as fuel in the mornings, sometimes before I go out and run. So I'll be less likely to go out to a convenience store afterwards. So, but I think that one thing that we're really starting to learn is that we can encourage others in the debt-free community when our journeys look different. Not everybody's going to look the same. Yours not going to look the same as ours. Ours not going to look the same as the next person down the street. It's just everybody's different. And we can also learn from others when we don't agree with 100% of their decisions. So we don't agree with 100% of the decisions that other people make, and a lot of people don't agree with all of the 100% of the decisions that we make, and that's okay. We can agree to disagree and move on and still encourage each other.
And I always say I try to find some, the more that we do this, there are times when I'm watching a video or something where I think I wouldn't do that, but that doesn't mean it's wrong for them. It just means it's wrong for me.
That's right.
And so what I try to do now is when I'm watching a video or something, I want to comment on it. What is something that I loved? Instead of what can I correct them on?
Yeah.
Because they're not your journey. That's not your journey. Their journey is their own.
That's right. So to kind of wrap it up, just 3 takeaways from here. If you know someone's on a debt-free journey, don't assume that they're broke or cheap. Don't assume that they're rich, and don't put down on their decisions because they're not your decisions. I think those are things. 3 things we can take away from this. Going on a debt-free journey can be an amazing decision, whether you're in debt or not. Going on a frugal journey, you might say, if you're not in debt, then you call it your frugal journey. But it's a decision that can set you up for success in the future. But never forget, your journey is going to be different than anyone else's, but in the best kind of way. Embrace the difference. If you're watching this video on YouTube, tell us in the comments the misconceptions that you think people have about frugal and or debt-free journeys. But that's going to do it today for the Our Debt-Free Journey podcast. We hope that you found this podcast video helpful. We hope that you will like, share, and subscribe more in the future. But until next time, this is Joel and Chrissy from The Long Run. Joel and Chrissy saying, don't forget the long run. Give yourself a little grace.
Bye.